What if I told you that addiction isn't about weakness or lack of willpower, or even about substances themselves, but about the way your brain learns to crave, repeat, and surrender to habits? What if the real prison isn't the substance, the device, or the behavior, but the invisible circuitry that rewires your very sense of choice? Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll not only understand the psychology of addiction, but also why it's far closer to all of us than we like to admit. And perhaps you'll discover something that can change the way you relate to your own habits before they hijack you completely. We live in a world where the word addiction usually evokes images of extremes: alcohol, drugs, gambling. But what if I told you that your phone could be just as addictive as heroin? That the way you scroll late at night, telling yourself, just one more video, is not very different from the way a gambler convinces themselves the next spin will change everything? Addiction isn't reserved for a few. It's a shadow that lingers in the background of every human life, because at its core, it is about how the brain processes reward, pain, and relief. And the truth is, your brain doesn't distinguish between nicotine and notifications. To understand how addiction hijacks us, we need to travel back to one of the most powerful parts of the human brain: the reward system. Deep inside lies the neurotransmitter dopamine, often mischaracterized as the chemical of pleasure. But dopamine is not simply about feeling good. It's about anticipating, wanting, and motivating. It is the spark that drives us towards something, not the satisfaction that comes after. And here's where the trap begins. When a habit floods your brain with dopamine, it creates a strong association between the behavior and the expectation of reward. It's not the drug, the slot machine, or the endless scroll that keeps us hooked. It's the chase. But here's the twist. The more you chase, the less it satisfies. Because dopamine doesn't just reward you, it teaches your brain to adapt. That first cigarette, that first drink, that first win at the casino, they create a memory, an imprint that tells your brain, this is the path to relief. But over time, the brain begins to dull the response. You need more of the substance, more of the behavior to feel the same effect. This is what psychologists call tolerance, and it's one of the silent engines of addiction. It's not about weakness, it's about neuroplasticity. Your brain literally changes, molding itself around the habit until not having it feels unbearable. Think of it this way. Your brain is like a forest trail. The first time you walk it, it's rough, uneven, barely there. But the more you walk it, the clearer it becomes. Soon, it's the easiest path to take. That's what habits are, neural pathways. And addiction? Addiction is when that one path becomes so worn, so ingrained, that every other path, the healthier, more balanced options, fade into overgrown obscurity. The brain keeps choosing the shortcut, even if that shortcut leads straight to destruction. But here's a deeper truth that few want to face. Addiction isn't only about pleasure, it's about escape. Studies show that many people turn to substances or compulsive behaviors not simply because they want the high, but because they want relief. Relief from stress, relief from emptiness, relief from unresolved trauma, loneliness, or pain. Addiction is often less about chasing joy and more about numbing sorrow. And when we realize this, we begin to see why breaking free is so complex. It's not just about removing the substance, it's about confronting the wound that made the substance necessary in the first place. Let me ask you this. How many times have you said to yourself, just this once? How many times have you believed you were in control, only to find yourself spiraling back? This isn't coincidence. This is psychology. There's a phenomenon called cue-induced craving. It means that your brain doesn't just crave the substance, it craves the context. The sight of a bar, the sound of a notification, the smell of smoke. These cues become triggers that set off a powerful cascade in your brain, lighting up circuits that scream, I need it now. Even years into sobriety, a simple cue can reignite the fire. That's why relapse is common, not because people are weak, but because their brains have been rewired to respond to the environment itself. But addiction also thrives in another hidden dimension: shame. You see, once people feel trapped, they begin to believe they are broken, beyond repair. Why can't I just stop? Becomes a silent mantra of self-loathing. And here's the cruel paradox. Shame fuels addiction. The more you believe you are worthless, the more you crave the escape. The cycle becomes self-sustaining, not because you want the substance, but because you want to silence the voice inside that says you are a failure. In psychology, this is known as the shame addiction spiral, and it's one of the most devastating traps a human being can fall into. But before we sink into despair, let's open a different door. Understanding addiction isn't just about recognizing the problem, it's about glimpsing the possibility of change. Neuroscience has revealed that while addiction rewires the brain, healing rewires it too. Just as habits can hijack your brain, new habits can reclaim it. The same neuroplasticity that leads us into compulsion can lead us out, if we are willing to walk the longer, harder path through that overgrown forest. One of the most powerful tools in this fight is awareness. Addiction thrives in the shadows. The more unconscious you are, the easier it is to repeat the cycle. But when you shine a light on the process, when you start recognizing the triggers, the cues, the stories you tell yourself, you begin to regain power. This is why mindfulness has become a cornerstone of modern therapy for addiction. By learning to sit with discomfort instead of running from it, by noticing the craving without immediately reacting, you weaken its grip. It's like loosening the ropes that tie you to the mast. Another key lies in community. In the Odyssey, Odysseus didn't survive the sirens alone. He tied himself to the mast and gave his crew the power to save him from himself. Addiction recovery works the same way. Humans are not designed to heal in isolation. Whether it's through support groups, trusted friends, or therapy, having others hold the line when your willpower falters is not weakness, it's wisdom. Psychology teaches us that self-regulation is strongest when it's shared. When someone else believes in your strength in the moments you cannot, you create a bridge back to yourself. But perhaps the deepest truth about addiction is this: it is not about the substance, the device, or the behavior. It is about the need underneath. Until that need is understood, acknowledged, and healed, the cycle continues. A person may quit drinking, only to become addicted to work. They may stop gambling, only to become obsessed with exercise. Addiction is shape-shifting because the wound it covers is still open. That's why real healing requires more than willpower. It requires self-discovery, courage, and often, forgiveness. Now ask yourself, what habits in your own life have begun to hijack you? It doesn't have to be extreme. Maybe it's the way you endlessly check your phone. Maybe it's the way you eat when stressed, or binge-watch when anxious. Addiction is not about how dramatic it looks. It's about how much control it steals. And the first step is honesty. Seeing where your freedom has quietly been traded for compulsion. The psychology of addiction is not just about others. It's about us. Because at some level, we are all vulnerable to the seduction of shortcuts, the false promises of relief. And the more we understand how the brain works, the less judgment we carry, the more compassion we can extend to others and to ourselves. So the question is, if addiction hijacks your brain, are you ready to take back the controls? Are you ready to step off the beaten path, cut through the overgrown forest, and carve a new trail? One built not on escape, but on presence, healing, and freedom? If this video opened your eyes, then now is the moment to take action. Hit the like button if this resonated with you. Subscribe for more deep dives into psychology and human behavior. And share this with someone who might be struggling. Because you never know, one video, one message, could be the rope that keeps them tied to the mast when the sirens call.